The storm had been building for 3 days. Dark clouds swallowed the peaks of the mountains, and thunder rolled across the valleys like the growl of some ancient beast. Rain fell in sheets so thick that even the dragons stayed in their caves, waiting for the weather to pass. Lord did not wait, he could not. His youngest hatchling was missing. Had been playing near the eastern cliffs when the first winds came. By the time her nursemaid realized she was gone, the storm had already closed in. Now, 12 hours later, there was still no sign of her. Had sent his best scouts into the tempest, but they returned with nothing. The wind was too strong. The rain blinded even dragon eyes. And somewhere out there, a hatchling barely 3 months old was alone in the worst storm the mountains had seen in a decade. Stood at the mouth of his great cave, his scales the color of molten copper, his eyes burning with a fire that had nothing to do with his breath. He was the sovereign of these mountains. He had ruled for 300 years. He had crushed rebellions, burned armies, and made kings kneel before his throne. And now he was helpless against rain and wind. When the first scout came back with news, nearly killed him for the words he spoke. She was seen in the human settlement, my lord, the town called. Humans, the word tasted like ash in his mouth. If humans had his daughter, they would pay. Every single one of them would burn. He launched himself into the storm without another word. The flight took longer than it should have. The wind fought him every wing beat, and the rain stung his eyes until he could barely see, but was a sovereign, and sovereigns did not stop. He pushed through the storm with fury driving every muscle, and when he finally saw the lights of the town below, he did not slow down. He landed in the main square with enough force to crack the cobblestones. Buildings shook, windows shattered, people screamed and ran in every direction, their tiny bodies scrambling for shelter like insects fleeing a fire. Let them run. He was not here for them, not yet. "Where is she?" he roared, and his voice echoed off every wall in the town. "Where is my daughter?" The square emptied. Doors slammed. Shutters closed. The rain continued to fall, drumming against his scales, but heard nothing except the pounding of his own heart. If they had hurt her, if they had so much as touched a single scale on her body, he would reduce this place to cinders and salt the earth where it had stood. Then he heard it, a small sound almost lost in the storm, a chirp, weak and tired but unmistakable. Turned toward the sound. It came from a building at the edge of the square, a tavern by the look of it. Wooden walls, a swinging sign, warm light spilling from the windows. He moved toward it, each step shaking the ground, and the door burst open before he reached it. A human stood in the doorway. She was young, perhaps 20 years by human counting. Her clothes were soaked through, her dark hair plastered to her face, and mud covered her from the waist down. She was breathing hard, like she had been running, and her arms were wrapped around something pressed against her chest. His daughter, wrapped in a wet blanket, cradled in the arms of a human server. Stopped. For a moment he could not understand what he was seeing. The hatchling was injured. He could see that now. One of her wings hung at a wrong angle and there were cuts along her side, but she was alive. She was chirping softly, nuzzling against the human who held her, and she was alive. "Give her to me," said. His voice was quieter now, but no less dangerous. The human did not move. She looked up at him, and he saw something in her eyes that he did not expect. Not fear, not greed, something else entirely. "She's hurt," the human said. "Her wing is broken. I said it as best I could, but she needs proper care. You need to be gentle with her." Blinked. Did this creature just give him instructions? "I said give her to me." The human still did not move. Instead, she did something that made no sense at all. She stepped back. She positioned herself between the hatchling and her body, blocking his path to his own daughter. "I found her in the creek," the human said. "She was drowning. The water was rising and she couldn't fly and she was going to die. I pulled her out and I carried her here, and I've been keeping her warm for hours. I'm not going to let anyone hurt her now, not even you." Stared at her. The absurdity of the situation was beyond anything he had experienced in 3 centuries of life. This human, this tiny, fragile creature who could be killed by a single swipe of his claw, was standing between a dragon's sovereign and his child. She was protecting his daughter from him. "You think I would hurt my own hatchling?" he asked. "I don't know what you would do," the human said. "I don't know you. I only know that she's scared and hurt and she needs someone to be gentle with her right now. So if you're going to take her, you're going to do it carefully, or you're going to have to go through me first." She spread her arms wide as if her body could possibly stop him, as if her soft flesh and brittle bones could stand against scales and fire. It was laughable. It was insane. It was the bravest thing had ever seen. Behind her chirped again. The hatchling lifted her head, and when she saw her father, she made a sound of recognition. But she did not try to go to him. She pressed closer to the human instead, seeking comfort from the creature who had carried her through the storm. Felt something shift inside his chest. He did not have a name for it. "What is your name?" he asked. The human hesitated. He tested the word. It was a common name, he thought, a name for common people living common lives. "Tell me what happened, all of it." Lowered her arms slowly. She was still watching him like he might attack at any moment, but some of the tension left her shoulders. "I was walking home from my shift," she said. "The storm was bad, but I didn't have a choice. I heard something in the creek. At first I thought it was a cat or a dog, something that had fallen in, but when I got closer I saw her." She looked down and her expression softened. She was caught on a rock and the water was up to her neck. She was trying to climb out, but her wing was broken and she couldn't get a grip, so I went in after her. "You went into a flooded creek," said, "during a storm, for a creature you had never seen before." "She was drowning," said, as if that explained everything. As if it was the simplest thing in the world. "You could have died." "So could she." Did not know how to respond to that. Humans did not do this. Humans were greedy and selfish and small. They captured dragons for gold. They sold scales on the black market. They hunted his kind with nets and poison and lies. They did not wade into flooded creeks to save hatchlings they had never met. "I carried her back here," continued. "It took almost 2 hours. She's heavier than she looks. I set her wing with some strips of cloth and kept her warm by the fire. I was going to try to find someone who knew about dragons in the morning, but then you came." "You carried her for 2 hours," repeated. "In the storm, through the mud." "Yes." "Why?" Looked at him like he had asked why the sky was blue. "Because she needed help. Because I was there. What else was I supposed to do?" The question hung in the air between them. What else was she supposed to do? The answer for most humans was obvious. Run, hide, sell, profit. That was what humans did. That was what humans always did. But not this one. Chirped again, and this time she reached out with her good wing, touching his cheek. The human smiled at her, a small and tired smile, and stroked the hatchling's head with gentle fingers. Watched them. His daughter, injured and frightened, seeking comfort from a human server who earned copper coins pouring drinks for miners. A human who had risked her life for a creature she had no reason to help. A human who had stood in front of a dragon sovereign and told him to be gentle. He had come here ready to burn the world. He had come here expecting to find his daughter in a cage or worse. Instead, he had found her safe and warm and loved, in the arms of the most unlikely protector he could imagine. "I will take her now," he said. His voice was different. He did not know when it had changed. "I will be gentle." Nodded slowly. She stepped forward, still careful, still watchful, and she placed in his massive claws with the care of someone handling the most precious thing in the world. The hatchling settled against her father's chest, and for a moment everything was still. The rain continued to fall. The thunder continued to roll. But in that small space between a dragon and a human, something had changed. Did not know what it was yet, but he knew it mattered. "You have my thanks," he said. The words felt strange in his mouth. He could not remember the last time he had thanked anyone for anything. "What do you want in return?" Stared at him. She seemed genuinely confused by the question. "I don't want anything," she said. "I just wanted her to be okay." Studied her for a long moment. Then he spread his wings, and without another word, he lifted himself into the storm. But as he flew back toward the mountains, his daughter safe in his arms, he found himself looking back at the small figure standing in the doorway of the tavern. She had not gone inside. She was watching him go, making sure they were safe, and she did not turn away until they disappeared into the clouds. He did not understand her. He did not understand any of this. But he intended to find out. Part 2. 3 days after the storm, returned to. He did not come with fire this time. He did not crack the cobblestones or shatter windows. He landed at the edge of town, folded his wings, and walked through the streets like any other traveler might. Of course, there was nothing ordinary about a dragon the size of a large house walking through a human settlement. People stopped and stared. Children pointed from windows. A cart horse fainted dead away, and its owner had to drag it to the side of the road. Ignored all of it. He had one destination in mind. The tavern looked different in daylight, smaller somehow, more worn. The paint was peeling on the shutters, and the sign above the door needed repair. It was the kind of place that served working people, miners and farmers and merchants who did not have much coin to spare. It was not a grand establishment. It was not a place where anyone important would choose to spend their time. And yet here was a dragon sovereign, pushing open the door with one massive claw and squeezing himself inside. The common room went silent. Every person at every table turned to look. A mug slipped from someone's hand and shattered on the floor. Nobody moved to clean it up. Scanned the room until he found what he was looking for. Stood behind the bar, a cleaning rag frozen in her hand, staring at him with wide eyes. She looked different too. Clean, dry, her hair pulled back from her face. Younger than he remembered and more tired. There were dark circles under her eyes like she had not been sleeping well. "Lord," she said, her voice was steady, which impressed him. "Is all right? Is something wrong with her wing?" Not "what have you come for" or "what do you want?" Her first thought was for the hatchling, again. "She is healing well," said. "The bone was set properly. Your work." Relaxed slightly. "Good, that's good." The silence stretched on. The other people in the tavern seemed to be holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen. Did not care about them. He had come here for one reason, and that reason was standing behind a wooden counter with a rag in her hand. "I wish to speak with you," he said, privately. Glanced at the tavern owner, a round man who looked like he might pass out at any moment. He nodded frantically, gesturing for her to go, clearly desperate to get the dragon out of his establishment before something got broken. Set down her rag and walked around the bar. She led outside, around the back of the tavern, to a small yard where barrels were stacked and chickens pecked at the ground. It was not much space, but it was enough. "What do you want?" she asked, direct, practical, no ceremony. Considered his words carefully. He had spent 3 days thinking about this conversation. 3 days watching his daughter heal, seeing how she called out for the human in her sleep, how she looked toward the east as if expecting someone to appear. 3 days remembering the sight of a serving girl standing between him and his child, ready to die for a creature she had just met. "Dragon law is old," he said. "Older than human kingdoms, older than most things in this world, and one of its oldest laws concerns life debts." Frowned. "Life debts." "When a dragon's life is saved by another, a debt is created. It must be honored. The savior may claim anything they wish from the one whose life they preserved." He paused. "Or in this case, from the one responsible for that life." Understanding dawned on his face. "You mean, because I saved her, you owe me something?" "Yes." She shook her head. "I already told you I don't want anything." "That is not how this works," said. "The debt exists whether you claim it or not. It binds me until it is satisfied. Until you name your price, I cannot rest. I cannot consider myself honorable. I will be bound to you until the debt is paid. He watched her process this information. Most humans, he knew, would immediately start calculating. Gold, land, power. The chance to have a dragon sovereign in their debt would drive most mortals mad with greed. He had seen it before. He had watched humans betray each other, destroy each other, burn their own cities for far less than what now had the right to claim. But Jess looked uncomfortable. I really don't want anything, she said. I didn't save her for a reward. I saved her because she needed help. Then name something small, a token, anything. I can't just make something up. She crossed her arms, stubborn. That would feel wrong, like I'm taking advantage of you. Blinked, taking advantage of him. A human worried about taking advantage of a dragon. The world had turned completely upside down. Then I will remain in, he said, until you think of something. Stared at him. What? The debt must be honored. If you cannot name a price, then I must wait until you can. I will stay here in this town near you until the matter is resolved. You can't just stay here, said. You're a dragon. You're the dragon. You have mountains to rule and important things to do. Nothing is more important than honor, said. I will stay. And so he did. He found a hill outside of town, high enough that he could see the whole settlement spread out below. He made his bed there among the rocks and grass, and he watched. He watched the sun rise over in the morning. He watched the people go about their daily lives. He watched walk to work in the early hours and walk home again when the stars came out. At first, the townspeople were terrified. They expected fire and destruction. They expected demands for tribute, for sacrifice, for all the things dragons had demanded in the old stories, but demanded nothing. He simply watched. And slowly, day by day, the fear began to fade into something else. Curiosity, maybe, or confusion. Found himself confused as well. He had lived for 3 centuries. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched generations of humans live and die like mayflies, brief flickers of existence that barely registered against the long, slow years of dragon life. He had always thought of them as lesser creatures. Not quite animals, but close. Clever enough to be dangerous, greedy enough to be predictable. Was nothing like that. He watched her split her lunch with a beggar who wandered into town, giving away half her meal without hesitation. He watched her work double shifts so another server could tend to her sick mother. He watched her step between 2 drunk miners who were about to come to blows, talking them down with patience and calm words until they shook hands and went home peacefully. She was kind to everyone, not just to people who could help her or reward her. To everyone. The other humans seemed to think this was foolish. He heard them talking about her when they thought no one was listening. Too soft, they said. Too trusting. She would never get ahead in life if she kept giving everything away. But saw something different. He saw strength in her kindness. It took courage to be gentle in a world that rewarded cruelty. It took strength to keep giving when others only took. Was not soft. She was something else entirely. He remembered his own court, the scheming and the politics, the constant jockeying for position, the way his advisors told him what they thought he wanted to hear instead of what was true. He had built his rule on fear and power, and it had worked. No one challenged him. No one dared. But no one would have waded into a flooded creek to save his life, either. 2 weeks after arrived in, a group of dragon hunters came to town. He smelled them before he saw them. Leather and steel and the particular stink of dragonbane poison. 5 of them, heavily armed, asking questions in the tavern about a hatchling that had been spotted during the storm. They had heard rumors. They wanted to know more. Could have dealt with them immediately. 5 humans were nothing to him. He could have burned them where they stood and been done with it. But something made him wait. Something made him watch. Was working that night. She served the hunters their drinks with the same polite smile she gave everyone else, but could see the tension in her shoulders. She knew what they were. She knew why they were here. When the hunters started asking direct questions about the hatchling, lied. She lied smoothly and easily, without a flicker of hesitation. She told them the rumors were false. She told them no one in had seen any dragons. She told them they were wasting their time, and they should try the settlements further south. The hunters did not believe her, could see it in their faces. They pressed harder, asking more questions, their voices getting louder and more threatening. One of them grabbed arm. "We know there was a hatchling here," he said. "We know someone in this town helped it. If you're hiding something, it'll go badly for you." Looked at his hand on her arm, then she looked at his face. "Let go of me," she said quietly. "Not until you tell us the truth. The truth is that you're hurting me, and if you don't let go, I'm going to scream. And then every miner in this tavern is going to remember that I've been serving them free drinks on their birthdays for 3 years, and they're going to decide they don't like the way you're treating me." She did not raise her voice. She did not threaten. She simply stated facts, calm and clear, and something in her certainty made the hunter hesitate. He looked around the room and saw the faces of the miners watching him. Hard faces, unfriendly faces. He let go. The hunters left that night but knew they would be back. They had smelled a trail and they would not give up easily. He needed to act. He found them camped in the forest a mile outside of town. They were sitting around a fire planning their next move when he dropped out of the sky like a falling mountain. The fight, if it could be called that, lasted less than 30 seconds. When it was over, there were no more dragon hunters. Returned to his hill and watched the sun rise over. He thought about lying to armed men to protect a hatchling she barely knew. He thought about the way she had stood her ground, calm and brave, even when she was afraid. He had been watching her for 2 weeks, waiting for her to reveal her true nature, waiting for her to show the greed and selfishness that all humans carried inside them. Instead, he had watched her give away her food, her time, her safety, for nothing, for no reward, because it was the right thing to do. Was 300 years old. He had thought he understood the world. He had thought he understood humans. He was beginning to realize he had been wrong. Part 3. 1 month after the storm, made a decision. He flew back to the mountains, but he did not go alone. Came with him, riding on his back through the clouds, holding tight to a ridge of scales that was almost too large for her arms to wrap around. Below them, the world spread out like a painting. Rivers like silver ribbons, forests like green carpets, the tiny dots of human settlements scattered across the valleys like seeds. Had not asked to come, had asked her. He had landed in front of the tavern one morning and said simply, "I want you to meet my daughter properly." It was not the whole truth. He wanted more than that. He wanted to bring her into his world, to show her to his court, to make a statement that he did not fully understand himself. But the visit with was where it would start. The hatchling was overjoyed to see her. She bounded across the cavern floor the moment they arrived, chirping and trilling, her heeled wings stretched wide. She circled 3 times, nudging her with her snout, pressing close like a puppy greeting a beloved owner. Laughed and wrapped her arms around the small dragon's neck, and for a moment the cave was filled with the sound of joy. Watched them together. He had never seen his daughter so happy. The trouble started the next day. Word spread quickly through the dragon court that the sovereign had brought a human into the mountains, not as a prisoner, not as a slave, as a guest. His advisors came to him with horror on their faces, demanding explanations. His rivals sent messengers with veiled threats and pointed questions. The old dragons muttered about tradition and proper order. This was not done. This was not acceptable. Listened to all of it, then he called an assembly. The gathering of dragon lords was held in the Great Hollow, a cavern large enough to hold 50 adult dragons with room to spare. They came from every corner of the northern territories, summoned by the sovereign's command, and they filled the stone seats with scales of every color, red and gold and silver, black and green and deep ocean blue. the oldest and most powerful of their kind, gathered together to hear what madness had possessed their ruler. Stood at the center of the chamber, stood beside him. The whispers stopped. The rustling of wings fell silent. Every dragon eye fixed on the tiny human standing next to their sovereign, and the weight of their attention was enough to crush lesser creatures. Did not flinch. "I have brought you here to witness something," said. His voice echoed off the walls, filling every corner of the cavern. "I have brought you here to meet the human who saved my daughter's life." More whispers, more sidelong glances. "Many of you know the law of life debts," continued. "This human is owed such a debt. She may claim anything she wishes from me, anything at all." He turned to, "Tell them what you want." Looked up at the assembled dragons. Dozens of them, each one large enough to swallow her whole, each one watching her with ancient eyes that had seen civilizations rise and fall. She took a breath. "Nothing," she said. Her voice was small in the vast space, but it carried. "I don't want anything." A murmur ran through the crowd, disbelief, confusion. Some of the younger dragons laughed. "She lies," one of the lords said. "A huge black dragon with scars across his snout. All humans lie. She is simply waiting for a better moment to make her demands." "I watched her for a month," said. "She does not lie, she does not scheme. She is exactly what she appears to be." "And what is that?" another dragon asked. "A fool." Turned to face the speaker. His eyes burned. "Brave," he said. "She is brave, more brave than any of us." Silence fell over the chamber. The word hung in the air, impossible and heavy. "Let me tell you what I learned in that human town," said. He began to walk, moving through the assembled lords, making them turn to follow him. "I learned that humans live short lives. 70 years, perhaps 80, and then they are gone. Every choice they make carries more weight because of this. Every risk is greater. Every sacrifice costs more." He stopped in front of the black dragon who had spoken. "We live for centuries. We are armored in scales that turn aside swords and arrows. We breathe fire that melts stone. What do we risk when we face a threat? Very little. Our survival is almost guaranteed. But humans," he shook his head. "Every time a human shows courage, they are gambling everything they have. Their one brief life. Their only chance." "This is sentiment," the black dragon said. "What does it matter how they feel about their choices? They are still beneath us." "Are they?" Turned to face the whole assembly. This woman waded into a flooded creek to save a creature she had never seen before. She carried my daughter for 2 hours through a storm, knowing that at any moment she might slip and drown. She stood between me and my own child, ready to die rather than let harm come to her. And when armed men came looking for the hatchling, she lied to their faces and risked their fury to keep safe. His voice rose. "What dragon here would do the same? What dragon here would risk their life for a human child? For any child not of their own blood?" Silence, the lords looked at each other. None of them spoke. "We have forgotten something," said. "We have grown so powerful that we have forgotten what true courage looks like. It does not look like a dragon facing a human army. That is not courage. That is certainty. True courage is a human girl standing in front of a dragon with nothing but her bare hands and her will, because someone small needed protecting." He returned to side. "I am appointing this woman as my daughter's guardian. She will live in my court. She will be protected by my law, and any dragon who threatens her will answer to me personally." The uproar was immediate. Dragons roared their disapproval. Wings spread and claws scraped against stone, but stood firm, and slowly, one by one, the protests died away. He was still the sovereign. His word was still law. Not everyone agreed. Knew that many of the lords left the assembly angry and bitter. He knew there would be challenges in the days to come. But something else happened too. Some of the dragons looked at with new eyes, curious eyes. They had heard the story of what she had done, and they wondered. In the months that followed, other humans began to appear in dragon territories. Not invaders, not hunters, helpers. farmers who had sheltered injured drakes during harsh winters, children who had befriended lost hatchlings and guided them home, merchants who had refused to sell dragon scales even when offered fortunes. Word spread that the sovereign of the mountains was willing to listen to such stories, and humans who had shown kindness to dragons began to come forward. Not all dragons accepted this change. Some clung to the old ways, the old hatred, but others listened. Others remembered times before the wars, before the fear and the hunting, when dragons and humans had lived in something like peace. Stayed in the mountains. She raised alongside the other hatchlings, teaching them games and songs and stories from the human world below. She taught them that kindness was not weakness. She taught them that courage could be quiet. She taught them that the size of your body did not determine the size of your heart. Grew strong and fast, her wing healing perfectly. She was devoted to, following her everywhere, curling around her at night to keep her warm. And as the years passed, other hatchlings began to seek out the human as well. They came to her with questions, with problems, with the small troubles of young creatures learning their way through the world. She helped them all. Watched this happen. He watched a single human change his court, his kingdom, his understanding of the world. He had ruled for 300 years through fear and power, and in all that time, no one had challenged him. No one had made him question his assumptions. It took a serving girl from a broken-down tavern to do what armies and kings could not. She made him better, simply by being who she was. Lived for 63 more years in the mountains. She grew old there, her dark hair turning silver, her step growing slower, her hands more fragile. But her heart never changed. She remained kind. She remained brave. She remained exactly who she had always been. When she died, peaceful and content in her sleep, was at her side. He had not left her for 3 days, knowing the end was near, unwilling to let her go alone. Her last words were for, now fully grown, a great and powerful dragon in her own right. Take care of each other, said. That's all that really matters. Carried her body to the highest peak of the mountains, where the air was thin and cold, and the stars seemed close enough to touch. Every dragon in the realm came to witness. They filled the sky, hundreds of them, their wings blocking out the moon. He set her pyre ablaze with his own fire. The flames burned bright against the darkness, and her smoke rose toward the heavens like a final prayer. Watched it go. He was crying. Dragons were not supposed to cry, but he was crying anyway, hot tears running down his ancient scales. He was not crying because he had lost her. He was crying because he had found her at all, because a storm had brought a hatchling to a creek, and a human had waded in after her, and everything had changed. She had taught him that kindness was its own reward, that courage did not require strength, that even the smallest creature could change the world. Came to stand beside him. She pressed her great head against his shoulder, and together they watched the last of the flames die away. She was just a human, one of the younger dragons said later. Why did everyone make such a fuss? Looked at him with her mother's gentle eyes. She was never just anything, she said. She was, and she was the best of us all. The story of the serving girl who saved a dragon spread far beyond the mountains. It was told in taverns and courts, in caves and cottages, in every place where humans and dragons lived side by side. It became a legend. It became a promise. It became a reminder that the greatest power in the world is not fire or scales or centuries of life. The greatest power is the choice to be kind when kindness costs you something, to be brave when courage might mean death, to stand in front of a monster and say, this is where I draw the line, even when you have no hope of winning. Humans could not breathe fire. They could not fly. They could not live for centuries or survive wounds that would kill other creatures. But they had something else, something dragons had forgotten how to see. They had heart. And that, in the end, was enough to change everything.